Cross a lot, but not many people from La Crosse come here.
Oh, come on.
So he's going to tell us about Freedom Honor Flights, and I'll let Bill take it away.
Super, thank you. And I'm still on the board of Freedom Honor Flight as well. Freedom Honor Flight in La Crosse started in 2008. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take you through what a typical honor flight is. Anybody else here besides Adrian been on an honor flight? Nobody else, okay. Anybody signed up to be on an honor flight? Anybody who's a veteran besides Adrian? One, two, okay. Well, you're all eligible to go on an honor flight. It's free. What happened was in 2000, honor flight actually started in 2010, I think, or 2006, excuse me, 5 or 6. And we'll get into that during this slideshow because I have a picture of the founder of Honor Flight, or co-founder. But in La Crosse, one guy from La Crosse went on a flight out of Rochester as what we call a guardian. A guardian is simply a chaperone, or in our case, a herder, because the main reason why everybody has to have, all the veterans have to have a guardian, or maybe 2 veterans per guardian, or whatever, is because we don't want people wandering off. And they do that, strangely enough. So, honor flight in La Crosse, one guy goes on a flight from Rochester, came back to his American Legion post and said, "Oh my God, we got to do this, it's so cool," which is not unusual with an honor flight. People get the passion for this situation, and it's quite an interesting affiliation that we have. Way more volunteers who call and say, "How can I help?" We have way more of those than we can even use. It's a wonderful thing. So, no, it's not working. I don't know how to get around to that. No, I don't. Why is it?
It's okay, tech support is here. We think.
There we go. We served the area in light blue. We were the first hub to get going in Wisconsin in 2008. We announced our existence in early July of that year. We actually got started in April, but we didn't tell anybody about it until about July. And 3 days after we made our announcement, the State American Legion Convention was held in La Crosse. And so we talked to them. We were, the last minute, they gave us a room, and a few people showed up, and we explained what we were doing. And some of those people actually went back, and Ken Brown from the Veteran Service in Milwaukee and Waukesha County went back and helped start Stars and Stripes Honor Flight. And some folks from Madison, eventually, after about 2 years of struggle, got Badger Honor Flight going. Never Forgotten Honor Flight up in the green, and Old Glory Honor Flight in the yellow, headquartered in Appleton. And this is Northland Honor Flight, which is actually operated out of Duluth, and they fly out of Duluth. These guys fly out of Mid-Continent and Menominee. They fly out of Appleton, but sometimes out of Oshkosh, because they're close enough. During the Experimental Aircraft Association, anybody ever been there? That's unbelievable. That's the world's busiest airport for about a week. And they have had a couple of flights where they fly out and back so that the people visiting EAA can have a chance to welcome them home. That's nice, but it kind of cheats the veterans a little bit because they've got to leave. If they want a crowd for the welcome, for the send-off, they've got to leave not real early in the morning. And if they want a crowd for the welcome home, they've got to get back before dark. Yeah, it's not quite such a good deal. Anyway, this is roughly the territory that we started. When we started, there was a hub in Rochester. They then went out of business. No scandal. They just flew 10 missions and said, "Oh, we're done." When in fact they really weren't done at all. They flew 10 missions with World War II veterans and then decided they'd done their part. So we took over their territory. Okay, I know how to do this. This is simply going to say, stop scanning. There. Now. Kind of that. And minimize that. So, since Since we began in 2008, we have flown, and these are updated numbers through this spring. We have flown 2,766 veterans to Washington. It's a free trip. We have about 500 people still on the waiting list to go. Probably 400 of those are Vietnam veterans. Almost none of them are Korean or World War II veterans. We had a World War II veteran on our last flight this spring. We had, I think, 3 Korean veterans. So we're almost done flying all of the World War II and all of the Korean, and we're in the middle of Vietnam, and we're a part of a national network called the Freedom Honor Flight, or the Honor Flight Network. Everybody takes and adds a word or two on there to identify their local chapter. We call our chapters hubs. And nationally, Honor Flight has 129 hubs in 45 states. I don't think Alaska or Hawaii have a local chapter, and there are a couple other states. But nationally, through the most recent update on their website, I checked this morning, they have flown just shy of 300,000 veterans to Washington for free since they started. Who pays for all this? Well, this is the Sparta boys basketball team, and they helped pay for part of it because they held a little fundraiser 4 or 5 years ago. In fact, I think it was the second one they've done over the time we've been around. And here's the ironic and wonderful miracle thing about Honor Flight. All of us live in one of the most generous areas that I've ever seen. And I'm a hometown kid from La Crosse. Each flight that we fly, and this is including the aircraft, because we charter an aircraft, so we're flying our airplane. Airplane, 4 tour buses in Washington, meals, gifts we give to the veterans and the guardians, costs us around $150,000. When we started, the airplane cost $54,000 just for the plane. Our next flight in September is going to cost just for the plane about $118,000. Gas has gone up, plane's gone up, who knows? So when you think about that, we've flown 30 missions. This will be number 31. So we raised somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 million in 16 years. And we have never asked anyone for money. We don't have a fundraising arm on our organization. I'm listed as the person in charge of fundraising, but that means is I get to go pick up the checks. It's all unsolicited stuff. It's not, we had a little corporate sponsorships, Quick Trip. I'm sure you've seen in your local Quick Trips, occasionally they'll do a deal where you walk in and it's put your name on a slip and then give them $1 and the slip gets glued up in the store. Quick Trip went right after we started. They chose that they would hook up with us for 3 years or so. They switch around different charities. And so this is done, they do this for 12 days. And at that time, they had around 470, 480 stores. Now they're over 800. In that number of stores, and that's all the stores that were in that footprint that I showed you with the map. Plus we serve some counties in Iowa and Minnesota. 12 days we get a check for $175,000. However, we then, and they provide us with a printout of how many of those dollars came from each one of their stores in county by county by county, and we got the wonderful job of splitting that out and sending a check to Cedar Falls in Iowa, and Mason City in Iowa, and Rochester, and Twin City. So we split it out to 13 different hubs. We'd wind up with about 30,000 of that. Other than that, Festival Foods in La Crosse, there are 4 stores only in La Crosse do a fundraiser for us once a year, around July 4th, and we get about $10,000 out of that. That's not, and they haven't done that the whole 16 years, and Quick Trip stopped after 3. So most of what we get is from voluntary organizations. Probably the other biggie is Legion Post 100 in Sparta has been a wonderful supporter of ours, and they probably raised somewhere around $350,000 over those 16 years. But it's all unsolicited. Schools have had penny wars, and kids give us a check. I've been up to Eau Claire for 3 different times to their Northwoods Elementary School, and they give us 1,500 here and 500 there, and it all goes together. We've never solicited, and in fact, we never do solicit any veterans, ever. You know, people think, well, you know, it's free, but then, you know, we're expected to give. You know, we get money from veterans, but we've never, there's no mailing list. They don't get any mail from us. They don't get any emails from us. So that's where it comes from. We need to stop that. And that. How's that? There we go. All right. So this is the honor flight starts with a meeting like this. Well, first it starts about a month, 2 months earlier than this. We call the veterans 2 months ahead of the flight, and we spend the night calling them. I'm holding that too close or something. Spend the night calling them and ask them if they'll go, and then we, after a couple of weeks, we call the guardians that are going on that flight, and 2 weeks before flight, they show up at this meeting. You're going to see 2 different colored shirts. Later on, you'll see them with them on for this meeting, or for this slow show, because we've switched from T-shirts to polo shirts about 2 years into our convention here. So they show up at a meeting, and while the veterans are checking in upstairs, the Legion downstairs, we're already there with the guardians, and we spend an hour and a half meeting on them and saying, you will never leave your veteran, ever, ever, ever. It's amazing how many people think of this until we beat it out of them, that this is a vacation for them. It's not. It's about the veterans, period. So we spend a little time down there talking to them about, you know, what the hazards are, watch out at this memorial because the elevator will break and things like that, and explaining the whole trip. Then we get everybody back together upstairs. We call the roll. Every veteran gets that's there. We call their name and say, okay, your guardian is so-and-so, and if that guardian is there, and most of them are, they get a chance to eyeball themselves 2 weeks before flight. We tell them that can change. Occasionally it does. They show up at flight and find that they've got a different guardian because for a number of reasons, but it's not often. So flight day starts at about 5 o'clock in the morning. The veterans show up at 5. The Legion riders from this area show up and greet them outside the hangar. And then they check in. And you'll notice we have color-coded tables, purple, yellow, orange, and there's another color. So they show up and they go, when they show up, they're greeted by one of our greeters, says, what's your name? You're on Alpha bus. We have 4 buses, Alpha, Beta, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. And so go to the Bravo table, that may be the orange one, and get your lanyard. On their lanyard is a name tag with their seat on the aircraft identified on it, and their guardian's name identified on it. And so they get that all together. And I don't know how well you can all see this, but this is the hangar. We don't fly out of the airport terminal, we fly out of the hangar. And the reason we do that is, I'll show you in a second. We're one of 2, interestingly, hubs in the country that flies out of a terminal, out of a hangar, not the terminal. It's a big place. So this area over here, this is right as people are starting to arrive. There's a rope line that goes all the way around there, and that's TSA is here. They're scanning people, and so we get them through security. And so this is where the veterans and passengers all go, and then the family members are back here. These days we have so many people that we've actually done away with the tables on this side, and it's all chairs. And the other thing that's different is we immediately split up the minute they walk in the door and say, okay, you're a veteran. If you're going on the flight, you're a guardian or a veteran, you go through security right now. We realized during COVID, we had to keep them separate a little more, and so that we find that that's actually working better for us. So we get all ready, and when you pin up that many people in there, and see here now you see we now have the colored tables with their lanyard on it. Whoop! I don't know what that's doing.
Sorry, y'all. I don't know how to stop that
either.
either.
Scan my flash drive, I think. At any rate. So these days, now everybody goes through security, goes right to the table and finds their lanyard, and with it, their little, they get a little pouch that we give them. It's got some chewing gum, it's got a couple of bottles of water, it's got some, a Rice Krispie bar, just in case they're hungry on the airplane. We have coffee and donuts before they ever go through that. So we get that at the hangar for them and their families. So we get that all organized. And what we found in one flight, our very first flight, we realized probably the only negative feedback we ever got, that is there a way we can, Maggie, is there a way we can keep that from doing that?
Let me Google it.
It's just weird.
I'm not entirely sure why it's doing that. I've never actually seen that happen.
This sounds good. So what we found out was, once they're penned up in the secure area, they don't want to listen to any political speeches. They want to get the heck on the airplane and get to Washington. And so we don't really have to have on a 10-minute program. Our president, Pat Stevens, in that case, says a couple of words. The Northwoods Elementary School choir comes in and sings a couple songs, and that's just about it. And then it's time to load the aircraft. And when we do that, are we there again? When we do that, we load the aircraft on this contraption here. What happened was, flight number 1, we chartered from, at that time, Northwest Airlines. Now it's Delta. It was Northwest. And we chartered them because they were the major carrier into our airport. We thought, well, they know the airport better than anybody. We'll get one of their airplanes. And a week before the flight, we found out that the 757 that they had chartered to us didn't fit any of the jetways at the La Crosse Airport terminal. So we got a week, and we've already paid the money for the plane. What are we going to do? And we had 4 people on that first flight that were confined to wheelchairs. Not looking forward to having to carry a wheelchair upstairs. And somehow, some way, one of our guys found out that there was a gizmo like this in Appleton. And Pat Stevens, who, I know Adrian knows who Pat is, but I think Pat is Mr. Irish Fest, Mr. Rotary Lights, Mr. River Valley. He knows people. So he made one phone call to Gene Swanson, who ran a crane company in La Crosse, and said, oversized, overweight, no problem. I'll go over and pick them up. I'll pay the freight, I'll pay the permitting, I'll do all that work, and I'll bring it over. And our airport liked that so much that they bought one. So ever since then, we've been flying out of a hangar. So the veterans come up, they walk up, they walk up, they walk up, and it's easier to put a wheelchair up there. We can wheel them up there. It's really pretty slick. So talk about lucky breaks. Between the hangar and the aircraft in the morning, we have an honor guard of people that form, and we never know who's going to be in that honor guard because it's active duty guys come over from Fort McCoy, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Legion Riders. I mean, it's whoever shows up that has a reasonable to be there. The other thing, the first thing on the plane, almost every flight these days, we didn't do that at the start. We didn't think about it. Here is a casket flag belonging to this lady's name is Eve Heitman. She's no longer with us. Donna Whittington is still with us. It's her husband's flag. She was one of the Sparta Legion people that was really an active fundraiser. And so we offer, her husband never got a chance to go on a flight. So we say, okay, we will take his casket flag with us to Washington, take it to the World War II Memorial, take some pictures, say some words, and it's a very motivating, a very moving thing for the family. Don is a good friend and also on that committee in Sparta, and so he's escorting her. It's the first thing on the plane and the first thing off the plane when they come back. How much time do I have? I'm good. Just a side note. I hope my wish for everybody here is that you age as well as Don Whittington. Don's 94, 95 years old. He is a World War II veteran. He's a Korean War veteran. And when he got it done with his 20 years, he said, I went to personnel and asked them what else they had for me to do, and they said, well, we want to send you to sniper school. One of the last things he did before that was he had been on the Army team that internationally competes as marksmen, good shooters all over the world. So he had a pretty good gig during that situation.
Right. So let's try instead of touching it.
While she's doing that, Bill.
Well, we're just going to minimize it and see if it'll run in the background, and then it will pop up.
How many people, Bill, how many actual veterans do you take on on the plane?
We take 100 on the plane, plus or minus every flight. You know, sometimes it's down as low as 96 because we have a lot of medical issues. Sometimes it'll be 103, 104. So Don, they said, we're going to send you to sniper school. He said, why not? I know all those people anyway. Oops, didn't work, maybe. You know, here's something. Why did I think of this? No, okay. I thought I could resize it.
Well, maybe it's done scanning, and that was the report, and now we won't do anything.
No, because that's what it says every time. It's a scanning report. So at any rate, back to Don. So Don served a tour of Vietnam as a sniper. Don owns a motorcycle. And I don't know how many of you are knowledgeable about motorcycles. I don't ride one myself, but there's a thing called a Can-Am, the one with the 2 wheels in front, 1 wheel in the back. This is a year old this year, this spring, has 25,000 miles on it. My wish for you is that you could age as well as Don Whittington.
So what time does the plane leave as a rule?
Plane leaves at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And gets back about 10:30. And Maggie, I still need your, oh, here we go. Did I just skip two? I did. So there's every flight to do that. Here you see Legion Riders, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts. We got what we call a rat pack, 4 guys in their uniforms that still fed from World War II, and they come up to every flight. And I'm going to offer a reflection on that little kid later on, but at any rate, so they come and they march out to the plane. And once we get the plane loaded, it's wheels up on the way to Washington. That's a view of the cross going out. On the plane, they get a chance to get to know each other. And when they land in Washington, it's the first clue they get that this is not an average trip. By the way, flying to Washington, let me go backwards. Flying to Washington, you and I want to fly to Washington, you know that's going to take a day, right? It's going to be hurry up and wait to Chicago, and then we got to wait for a plane, and it takes all the time. It's an 1.5-hour flight. 90 minutes from La Crosse Airport to Washington Reagan Airport. At all 3 major airports in the Washington area, every honor flight that lands is given a water cannon salute. There's a firefighting vehicle on each side of the plane, and they have an arc of water going over it. And that's normally an honor that's reserved for a commercial pilot's last flight. They do that when they end their careers. So they do it for every honor flight. And then they get off the plane, and they see things like this. All kinds of people. There is a volunteer crew at each of those 3 airports that greets each honor flight. You know, there's sometimes there's an orchestra or a jazz band or whatever. And here's something I gotta explain. There's a lot of emotion associated with an honor flight. We don't structure this at all to say, how can we make this emotional? Because we never know what of it is going to make anybody emotional. That little first Cub Scout I showed you about our 3rd flight was an old doctor from La Crosse that I had known. His daughter and I went to high school together, and he's explaining at the reunion, after every flight we have a reunion, and he explained what tripped his emotional trigger. And he's trying to explain this, and he's breaking down sobbing, because what struck him was this little Cub Scout saluting, and it just knocked him out. He hadn't got on the plane yet. So, you know, we never know how that's going to work. And so here's, you know, active duty Air Force or Army or whatever will show up. And here's a guy coming right off the plane. First thing, he's been greeted in Washington and hugged and kissed sometimes. And it's, you know, he's in tears. We charter 4 buses and onward, on and off, we have had police escorts for many of our flights. During COVID, they stopped doing it. I think we're picking it back up again now. So the volunteers come with us all the way to the buses and wave us goodbye. And we love the police escorts when we have them, because that's a 6-lane wide Washington street. And we were able at one point to do a U-turn on that street with no problems.
So that makes it very efficient if you got a police escort.
Absolutely.
You don't find all that
I have video of a motorcycle cop who was our lead guy one time, who's going down, this back when we flew to Dulles, which is a 45-minute drive into Washington, and he's going down the freeway at 55 miles an hour on his motorcycle, no hands, doing this. to traffic. But we love that. So this is the Washington Memorial's off the shadow, or you can see that back there. This is World War II, and this is the office that they have a national register of all the veterans of World War II, that if somebody wants to add their name or add their father's name, you can go in there and get that done. And that's kind of, it looks like chaos, but it's not. We have, on every bus, there's 2 people, head of the stairs and bottom, making sure nobody falls. There's 2 more people getting wheelchairs out from under the bottom of each bus. We take 70 wheelchairs with us on every flight. Hello? Go backwards again. This is World War II. This is the World War II Memorial, and the buses are stopped down over here. That office is just a little further down over here. There are 2 portals, Atlantic and Pacific, that you enter the World War II Memorial, or there are steps here. The Lincoln Memorial is way up the mall down this way. And it's kind of noisy because there's a lot of fountains in it. And this is, all these pictures you see, this is probably the best volunteer we have in honor flight. Dave Larson is our photographer. He's not a professional photographer. He's a very professional photographer, but he's gone on every flight but one. He takes about 2,000 pictures. And when they come back, the veterans get, at the reunion, they get a Shutterfly book, looks like this, that has pictures from their flight. They also get a flash drive, like the one that's plugged into the computer there, with another 700 to 800 pictures that were taken on their flight. Dave is, let me give you the best example. Flight 2 or 3, he was on, and he said, you know, to himself, he said, I want some pictures. I want to be able to give these guys pictures of these memorials at night. So without telling anybody other than his wife, Dave got in his car, drove to Washington, slept in his car, so he could get pictures of the memorials at night and at sunrise. So they're included in all the pictures that the guys get every time.
Bill, is the World War II Memorial relatively new?
World War II was built in about 2004 or 5.
That's what I'm gonna,
Yeah, it took 60
It's been a long
years.
time since I've been there, and I never knew there was one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, in World War II, in Korea and Vietnam, when they built World War II, or when they built the Vietnam Wall, rather, that really set off a lot of other veterans to say, well, wait a minute, how come there's no World War II? How come there's no Korea? So that all got done. There, among other things you see there is bas relief, sculptures in that memorial. There shows a little better. You're standing under the Atlantic or the Pacific portal, looking across. The pillars are, there's one pillar for every state and territory in the Union at the time of World War II. The Wisconsin pillar is right there, Minnesota pillar is right there, and Iowa is way over on this side. This guy is a guy named Earl Morse. Earl is the co-founder of Honor Flight nationally. Story is, Earl was a flight medic in Vietnam, not a pilot, but a flight medic, who escorted on transport ships all the wounded going from hither and yon from Vietnam. He came out, he worked at the VA medical system, and he was a physician's assistant, and he had all these patients, 300-400 of these patients were World War II veterans, and when he read that they were building a memorial, he started asking them, when you going to go out and see it? When they dedicated it, or sometime. And over he heard, I'm never going to see it because I'm too old, I can't fly, or I can't afford it, or one thing or another. And he said, I've heard him tell that story several times. He said, I think I had heard every argument. I was ready. And this guy, Mr. Roy, came in and he was doing this, and he said, I said the question, and the guy said, was ready for what he was going to say, and instead of reacting, the guy broke down in tears. And Earl said, listen, I'm a private pilot now. He said, I can get a hold of a little bitty airplane, and you and me can fly out there, and we just do that. And they did, and they had a great time. And so Earl came back, and he talked to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Flying Club, because that's where he was in the VA. He was in Springfield, Ohio. And so they started flying, and he says, I told my mom, I'm so proud. we're flying 12 veterans a month. And she said, son, we're getting 96 applications a month. And that's when they knew they had to scale it up. So they did. And so we started chartering charter airplanes. And so there's the Wisconsin pillar. And so every time we visit that with one or more casket flags, we tab some of the veterans to carry Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa flags, and to carry the casket flags up to the Wisconsin or Minnesota pillar. And we have a very, very short, it's not even a ceremony anyway. If we have a chaplain along, we'll say a few words, a little prayer. You can't do ceremonies inside the World War II because it clogs up traffic. So we keep it very, very short. That is one side it's on this side of the oval. And one of the things we hear often, less these days, but in the early days, about the World War II is where's the wall with all names on it? They thought that the World War II had that. It doesn't. Partly because the wall would be too big. Each gold star on that wall signifies 100 American soldiers who didn't come back. And there's 4,048, I think, or 46 stars on that wall. And the curve that I can't, or the wide shot doesn't show the whole thing. It says, here we mark the price of freedom. 4,048. And they're either the dead or missing in action. And quick geography lesson. So here's the river and the tidal basin, all that stuff, and the here. It's so small. Here's the Lincoln Memorial. Here's the World War II. Washington Monument is right there. So that's where the mall connects this way, and then if you go all the way to the Capitol is over here, and then the rest of the mall goes up toward the White House. And then here's Arlington Cemetery across the river. And down here, there's the Pentagon, and down here on Foxcroft Heights is the Air Force Memorial, and I'll show you a picture of it in a while. The mall is World War II Lincoln. The Vietnam Wall is just on the north end of the mall, and the Korean Monument is right down to the south of it.
So you just do the monuments, or do you do Arlington as well?
Say what?
When you go, you just do the monuments, or do you do Arlington as well?
We do it for sure. We do Arlington. So again, there's the Pentagon, there's Arlington, and if you were looking up close, you could just see the shadow of the Washington Monument in past World War II and whatnot. So, among the other things we occasionally visit, depending upon circumstance, and the disabled American veterans, there's the Lincoln, and I don't know if I put in the shot. Yeah, here's a more recent shot from our spring thing. That you look backwards now at, that's the Lincoln Memorial. You may have seen if you were ever in Washington. These days it looks like this because they built this huge ramp, so you can go up there on a ramp instead of steps. There's still some steps, but not as many. This is the Korean War Memorial. This is an interesting story. Over here, you'll see, and there's a couple shots of this. This is a reflecting marble wall that into it are etched pictures of actual soldiers, pictures of all the different equipment they use. These guys are 9 feet tall, and when you get up close to them, you can even see the seams of the stitching in their uniforms. This is meant to represent all the different guys. There's a radio operator, there's a Browning automatic rifleman, and the story I've heard is that there were original plans to have 38 statues, which apparently would be a platoon at that time. There's only 19. There's only 19, but when you stand over here and look in this reflecting wall, you can see 38. That's how I don't know if it was because they didn't have enough land or whatever, but that's how they got around it. So you see this guy, for example, has his hand out like this. He's looking backward at the rest of his soldiers saying, you know, watch out. hang on. It's a very neat spot, and the lighting at night, I'll have a shot at this. If you ever go to Washington, by all means find a way to take the tours of the memorials at night. There's some work you can see on the you can see some of the pictures that are etched into that wall, and something you see often at the Korean War Memorial is a wreath or one or more, and almost always they are from Korea. The Korean people, when they visit this memorial, to them that's their memorial. They are very grateful for what America and all of our allies did for them in the war. And then there's a marble thing at the top of the memorial saying, "Freedom is not free." The only thing that's wrong with it is there's not enough space to take a group photo when you got 100 veterans. We do that at World War II because it's big, and we do it other places. This is the start of the Vietnam Memorial. These next two statues were added after the original wall was under construction or built. This is the Women's Vietnam Memorial. Statue shows three nurses, Faith, Hope, and you can't see Charity. She's around the back, sitting there with her head in her hands, overcome by emotion. This one's looking up to see when the medevac chopper is coming in. This is the soldiers that were added to the memorial after roughly about a year into it. Apparently the Vietnam veterans said, "Hey, how come there's no soldiers?" So they added some soldiers. They're very, very lifelike, very, very neat. This is the wall itself. This isn't a hill, this is dug out. So this is ground level, and I forget how many panels, but there's 56,000 plus names on the wall. And the ranger there shown in the yellow shirt, one of the things they offer to do is there's a way you can look up all the names on that wall if you know somebody, and they can direct you to it. It will show panel so-and-so and row so-and-so, and they'll do an etching for you of that name on the wall. That's a night shot of the Vietnam Memorial, and I think Dave had to break that up just so you can even see it. It's really dark, but it's really eerie, really interesting thing to visit. There's World War II at night, and it doesn't have the same drama, but this is the Korean. And I'll tell you what, that thing is scary neat at night. Really quite nifty. Quick story. That's Irene Schrader. Irene was a nurse, I think, in World War II. And so 3 weeks before the flight, and her daughter called me. The daughter was not going along with her mom. She was going to be here waiting for her when she got back. She was going to bring her to across. Irene was going to have a regular guardian. And the daughter says, "Do you visit the Women's Memorial?" Which is, I said, "Well, I know what you're talking about. It's right inside the gates of Arlington on the right, when you drive into Arlington Cemetery." And I said, "I know what you're talking about. We don't normally stop there." She said, "Oh," she said, "my mom's picture is in that memorial." What do you say to something like that, I said, "I don't make the itinerary, I said, "Listen, all I can do is I will pass that word along to the people who do make the itinerary and the plans. But please, please, please don't get your hopes up, because we're asking to stop a 4-bus caravan for one person. And there's all kinds of other factors that will enter into that." So I said, I don't know what I can tell you, other than our guys have hearts of gold, but you're asking a lot. So they get there, and they're driving into Arlington. Irene looks over at them, and she says, "Oh man, there's the Women's Memorial. I'd really like to see that." Her guardian says, "Well, then let's do it. Let's stop." And she had no idea it was coming. They got her off the bus. And there was a bunch of brass having a meeting. They stopped what they were doing. They took her, found their picture, took all kinds of pictures with her. Her daughter called me that afternoon, and she said, "My mom called me." She wasn't even back yet. My mom called me and she couldn't even speak. So she made a memory. Irene is no longer with us as well, but she made some great memories. And then we put her back in the squad car, which stayed behind, and then we whistled her up to this. Now let's see if that, yeah. Listen closely. Listen, don't watch, listen. Don't watch.
Do you want to hit the sound button on the computer real quick? See if that'll... No, look, okay.
I thought we had that turned on.
We did, but Zoom might
So watch, ready? He's waiting 21 seconds. And now he's watching 21 steps. And when he gets to the end, and when there's veterans present, they have a certain way of scuffing their heel to let them know as a sign of honor. Amazing stuff when you get into that. Arlington is one of the things you see all over there is signs like that. We had one of our flights where one of our fellows in the military was sitting there with his water bottle. The water bottle tipped over. Didn't leak anything. The cap was on, but it made a little bit of sound tipping over. It stopped everything dead. The sergeant and the guards came out and marched out and picked up the water bottle and took it away, and it was like, oh, in trouble. They're real serious about that. And they also say, before the thing starts, they come up and they say, you will, if you are able, you must stand. There'll be the whole change of the guard ceremony.
I went there once, and in the old days, remember you had cameras that it clicked when you
Yep.
took a picture, and they were doing that changing of the guard,
Yep.
and I clicked my camera, and they were on me. The guns were on me.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep. Yep.
because it was a click.
You don't want to mess that up. I think I got time for one more story. There's some more pictures yet, but quick story. And this didn't happen on one of our flights, but I just want to, I know the guy who was involved. When we got started, there was a guy from National, who was a volunteer, but he came out and went on our first flight with us to make sure we got it done right. His name was Al Bailey, he was a veteran. And on another flight, when I met up with him later, he was telling me, he was on a flight, he was pushing 93-year-old Grandpa in a wheelchair. And Grandpa says, do we go to Arlington Cemetery? And Al says, yeah, oh, absolutely, we will go there. And Grandpa says, can you take me to see my grandson's grave? Again, how do you say no, but, if you're on a clock. And by the way, when you do go to Arlington, you have to have a time slot to do it. When you get a 4-bus caravan, they don't just let you drive in and park wherever you want to. You have to have an appointment. So Al says, well, I don't know. And Grandpa said, he died 3 years ago today. Okay, there's another one we got to make happen. Lucky for him, he didn't realize it for reasons I won't even, for time. Al knew Arlington pretty well. And so he hands Grandpa off to somebody else, says, follow me, but he starts running. And he eventually found the tombstone. And he's looking at his watch, and he's looking at Grandpa 2 blocks away. And he's thinking, well, I got the camera here. He said, I'll take some pictures anyway, so that we got background. And as he's doing that, somebody taps him on the shoulder and says, what are you doing? And he says, there's this thing called honor flag, da-da-da, Grandpa. He died 3 years ago today, and the guy says, I know, I was with him, he died. He saved my life. This is the kind of miracle that happens on an honor flight. I mean, how many stars have lined up to make that coincidence happen? I mean, it happened. And amazing. Grandpa got a chance to meet the guy whose life his grandson saved. And the kid said, you know, he said, it's been 3 years and I've never tried to reach out to his family. I'm going to call his mom tomorrow. So the family gets some closure. It's just really neat stuff that you see happen a lot. Times, you know, 129 different hubs in the country. Every time you get coffee, I just have to wait. Okay, here's the Air Force Memorial. It overlooks the Pentagon, it overlooks Arlington. That sculpture is designed to, the inspiration is the Air Force Thunderbird jet demonstration team. When they do this, and they go up and they do the bomb burst, that's what that's inspired by. And so there's Arlington looking from that statue area. Arlington's way down there. You can see the Washington Monument. And then there in the background is the Pentagon. And in fact, that's the side of the Pentagon that the plane hit. And my understanding is, because the Air Force Memorial was not built at the time 9/11 happened, had it been, the plane would have hit the spires. And then we often, almost all the time, go to the Pentagon 9/11 Memorial. There's a bench for every person who died, and if it points that way, and I'm not sure that, you know, I don't recognize in this photo what angle I'm looking at it, but the people who died inside the Pentagon's benches are pointing one way, and the people who died on the plane are pointing another way. And we had the pleasure a few years ago of having somebody on our flight whose daughter died in the Pentagon. And there's her name. And when we got there, again, total coincidence, Badger out of flight out of Madison was also there that day. And we ran into them as we got over there. And here, lo and behold, was his cousin. So we had a family reunion right there. And then we go to Iwo Jima. And again, as a nighttime visit, it's a great place to take group photos. And at night, it's amazing. Really a neat spot. And even better, because we went there for years. Just in the past 2 years, they built all new bathrooms there. Our flights are planned around bathrooms. You know, at the age of our veterans, yeah, that's what we have to do. They're planned around bathrooms. So there's bathrooms in the hangar and on the buses and in the plane. And Air Force Memorial, great bathrooms. World War II, wonderful bathrooms. And this place used to have porta potties. No longer. It's got good stuff. And then we get back on the plane and we come home. And when they come home to that same hangar, but there's no security rope off this time, so there's 1,000 or more people there standing there, and they have to walk, when they come off the plane, right down through the middle of them to a screaming, clapping, and when they get off the plane, there's an honor guard, obviously. There's a marching band from one of the area high schools. We've had Westby down there. I don't know if we've had Veronica High School or not, but I know we call all over sometimes to get a band. And there's a lot of reunions going on there, a lot of that kind of thing. And that's the end of a flight. I left enough time, hopefully, to answer a couple questions. Yeah.
So the people that are escorting these folks are not their relatives, they're just...
The guardian can be a relative, can't be a spouse. Don't matter, cannot be a spouse. Guardians are anybody between 18 and 70. If a veteran knows somebody specifically on their application, they will put that name in a spot that says, are you asking to have somebody be your guardian? And then the guardian has to file a separate form as a guardian application. And on their form, it'll say, are you asking to fly with a specific veteran? They put the veteran's name down, and so we marry them together, and so we can make that happen. Typically about maybe half the guardians are family members, and half are just volunteers. Hey.
I was just going to say, my son who was in the Army was my guardian for my Freedom Honor fight. That was just special.
Oh, sure, of course. No question about it. Being able to share with a family member is always special. Sure.
So, how does a veteran sign up to be given a list?
A couple different ways. One is, and I apologize, we just got through a couple of events we haven't normally done, but little community celebrations here and there that we had to unpack some stuff and take it places we don't normally do it. They order it, so the applications folder that has been in my garage normally isn't there right now, or I would have it here with me. But the way it is, first off, you go online to freedomhonorflight.org. Second thing is check with your local veteran service officer. If they don't have a form, because we try to keep them in stock where they can print them right off the computer. And they all know about us. And I don't think there's a VSO anywhere around that doesn't know about Freedom Honor Flight these days after 16 years. But you can fill out the form and mail it in, or you can actually, these days, actually fill it out online on the computer and submit it right electronically. So can Guardians.
Is
So either way.
your address on this form?
I believe it is. The website is on that form.
So do they have to supply the information like their military number?
No, we don't ask for your DD-214 or any of that kind of stuff, and you're thinking, how is that? Well, you know what? I don't think we've ever had anybody that lied about it. The only thing we had close, on our last flight, we almost lost a veteran. We've never lost a veteran. And the reason was because the guy lied to us on his application about his medical situation. And as a result, we're going to get a little stricter on how we vet that stuff. But he went down to the plane on the way back, and we take 4 paramedics and 2 doctors on every flight. So every bus is a paramedic, and there's 2 docs with us every flight. And they really got to get it back. But
And they're also volunteers, right? Those
oh yeah. Well, yes, and the paramedics particularly volunteer. They love to go on the flights and they volunteer for that. But they are paid to go along by their institution.
Oh.
So Gunderson and Mayo typically each send a doc, and they're paid. And so are the paramedics, but not by us. It's a nice donation. So yeah, I mean, the website address I think is on those brochures, and I think there should be a phone number too.
Yeah, some of that.
And the phone number is not. We don't have somebody answering the phone. It's just leave a message. We can call you back. And likewise, there's an email info@freedomhonorflight.org that I answer every message. And so it might take a day or two, but we get it done.
So notify them probably a month before the flight?
2 months.
2 months, okay.
We call you 2 months before the flight. And if for some reason we call, for example, let's say you sign up and your turn finally comes up again, remember there's 500 people ahead of you. So it's kind of like the military, hurry up and wait, right? But if you get the call and you say, oh, geez, my great-grandson is graduating from high school that day and I want to, I can't miss that. The response is automatic. No problem. We'll keep you at the very top of the list, and the very next flight, you'll be number 1. Yeah.
I would encourage anyone to go, but I think one of my special recognition from that was when we flew into Washington and I don't know, hundreds of grade school and teachers and stuff that were waving the flags and just loving you.
Yeah. Yeah. Everywhere you go in Washington, there are going to be people there. I flip it, a very quick story. My wife and I were in Washington as tourists some years ago, and I knew about Honor Flight, so we were walking around the Lincoln Memorial, and here's a Gaggle High School girl skittering around, and I saw another bunch of guys with t-shirts on. I knew it had to be an Honor Flight, and I could tell from the fellows, at least the one guy I see, and I'm thinking, that's another World War II veteran, it's probably 10 years ago. I went to these girls, I said, hey, see that guy over there? He's a World War II veteran. Boom, they were on him like nothing. They wanted autographs, and this guy's like, whoa, that's pretty cool. So, it's, yeah.
What is the cost to family guardians?
The guardians charge, they pay their own way at $500. And inevitably, a veteran will say, well, can I pay for my grandson? Don't tell me that, but sure, we don't care where the money comes from, but we're not in the business of trying to get it from the guardian, or from the veteran. We're just, it is what it is. Yeah.
And when the applications come in, are they graded on World War II?
The priority is World War II automatically is number 1, Korea is number 2. We're pretty much done with that. Like, if you get a World War II today, he or she is number 1.
Is Berlin crisis considered in this at all?
Boy, you got me there, honestly. Do you know if Congress has established a date thing for that, because this is all based on active. Let me back up a minute. When we started, the policy nationwide for our organization was you had to be a war veteran, meaning Congress delineates what dates that is. You know, in Korea it was 51 to 56, and it's right down to the day. And so we have people who are 90 years old today who served in Korea, but they served there maybe a month after the armistice, and they're not considered Korean War veterans. We're trying to get those people and you know, essentially sneak it in a line anyway, because they're old. We need to get them out there. I'm not sure whether Congress has declared that to be a war veteran situation or not.
I just want to ask, why, do you know why it is that a spouse can't be the guardian?
It was national policy, and the reason is because, twofold, I think. Number one, she's taken a seat that we could go to another veteran. Number two, God forbid the plane has a problem. We may have, you know, the whole family on our plane, and we don't want that. So we've just always adhered to that. The other policy, though, that has changed now is, now honor flight eligibility is for anybody who served in any capacity at any time. We still have the same World War II, Korea, Vietnam, but then once that, and at this point, I don't think Congress has set any dates for any of the Mideast conflicts that we've been involved in. There will eventually, I think. But there's already talk, in fact, of a Desert Storm memorial somewhere. So where we are now is we have about 100 people on another group that's just called Other. And Other might be that poor 90-year-old that served in Korea, that he's not a war veteran. It might be somebody who served, you know, and got out 2 years ago from the Mideast. And we'll get all those too. So long as people are willing to give us money, we'll keep flying.
And I have to say that $500 for a trip to Washington is not cheap.
We feed them, and everybody gets a shirt. Everybody gets, before the flight, everybody gets a picture book at one time or another. This was the World War II. We've given it to Korea, and nowadays we give one that's more like it's a picture book of all the memorials in Washington, all done by the same guy. It's really cool. But yeah, it's probably one of the nicest adventures I've ever been involved in. I've only been on 3 of the flights. Our flight typically has at least probably 5 or 6 of our directors on it. 4 of them are bus captains. So each bus has a bus captain as one of our directors to kind of keep things in line. And you know, the docks, and typically we'll take some media with us if there's room. And it's a heck of a deal. I don't know what I can tell you other than you'll never, you know, rule number 1 of our whole organization is you will never disappoint a veteran. We work so hard to make sure that doesn't happen. So, and last comment, in fact, I think it came from Baroque. We had a guy who flew with us about the 3rd or 4th flight, so it's a long time ago now. And at the reunion, which is a month after the flight, he stood up, and the reunion has about a 10-minute program from us, and the rest of it is open mic for all the veterans and guardians who are there, and they can tell us war stories. They can tell us what they thought of the flight. I remember one flight where I heard how Ernie Pyle really died in World War II. I said, don't believe we'd read the books. I was there and saw it happen. Okay, you never know what you're going to hear. So this guy was a travel agent. He stood up and he said, I had spent, and I think he was from Verona. He said, I've spent my whole life as a travel agent organizing tours all over the world. He said, I've never been on one as well organized as this. And we hear that a lot. And let me close with this. The other thing we hear a lot. First flight, guy comes off the plane. I'll keep this as short as I can. I knew him. I said, LP, how do you do? And he said, oh, this was the best day of my life. And I said, wait a minute. You were a POW in Germany. You survived that. You survived a war. You survived all that. You got back home and, you know, got married and had kids, grandkids, and all life joys. And I get about halfway through that, and he goes, you know, he's pounding on my chest saying, no, this was the best day of my life. That's goosebump stuff. That's just nutty crazy. What a great, all of our volunteers and directors, we have the privilege of giving people, not everybody, I'm not saying every veteran, but a lot of them, hundreds I know, we got a privilege of giving somebody the best day of their life. What a blessing. what a blessing. So, thanks for your attention.